Welcome to 30 Minutes of Faith. We have with us today Bea Bailey, who is a friend, a deeply religious woman, a television star, all of those sorts of things. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Now, we always start with, where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born and raised in Davenport, Iowa. And for all the viewers, yes, there are black people in Iowa. A lot of people say, I don't know. There are black people in Iowa. I'm a minister's daughter, a PK kid, and was active in our church, which was New Hope Baptist Church. I sang in the choir. We had a family group that toured the Midwest called the Tonettes, because I was one of the Tony girls. And I had a very interesting childhood.
And prayed and worshiped and believed in God?
There was no, it was not an optional event in our house, absolutely. I can remember one of the most moving things that my mother did, you know, as you get older, and I am getting older, and that a lot of memories come back that you treasure. I can remember once during a snowstorm, my mother got us up and we went out on the screen porch, and we lived on a busy street, but no traffic had been down there. So there was snow everywhere. And she just whispered, she said, "Be still and know that there is a God." It was very moving.
Nice scriptural reference. Mm-hmm. I grew up on a little street that was actually a passage through, you know, from one point to another, but, you know, 2 cars a week went through there, sort of thing. And the street was where we played baseball. And when I was a little boy, 3 or 4, my dad would say, "Put your ear on the ground, see if a car's coming." And I'd listen, and it took me a while to hear what it sounded like when a car was coming versus when one wasn't. So my first chief responsibility in life was put my ear on the pavement and see if it was clear to throw another pitch, and away we'd go, you know, and that was a lot of fun. We were talking a minute ago about integration and college in Iowa. Talk about that a little bit. That was interesting.
Well, it was interesting. I just got back from a class reunion. My freshman dorm mates and I got together up in Oregon, and we just had silly fun. Just there were 4 of us, just silly fun. But what I found out during this visit, that in 1964, do the math, you can figure out what I am. 1964, when I went to the University of Iowa, my roommate was white. Little tiny thing. We called her Little Pam. She was 5 foot and I'm 5'11". We went everywhere together. But she told me that after she got to the university, she found out that our dorm was the first integrated dorm. I said, "But no, there were other black girls there." She said, "Only 2 to a room." There wasn't a black and white mix. So it was done as an experiment. And she and I were totally clueless to it.
And did you get along, and life was good?
We got along great. It was interesting because there ended up being 3 of us. There was me, and then another black girl that I went to high school with and went to my church. We weren't particularly close. We were friendly, so she happened to be assigned to the room. And the biggest concern that Little Pam had was that she was getting in the middle of 2 good girlfriends. And it turned out that this young woman, that was the other black woman, did not like white people at all. She was from Little Rock, Arkansas, had experienced quite a bit of discrimination growing up. So she really didn't want anything to do with Pam. Well, you know, I like people every shape, size, and color, so she and I got along great. And the other girl was angry at me because I was nice to the white girl. And then the irony is, the girl who didn't like white people ended up marrying a Swedish guy and had 2 children. So how's that for irony?
In your childhood, did you have children who were white that were your friends?
Yes, I did. I mean, I'm from Iowa. In my graduating class from high school, there were 528 students. There were 8 blacks. So I was surrounded by whites. I'm from Iowa. Hello.
Did you feel discriminated against?
The only time in retrospect, that I felt discriminated against, two occasions. One, there was a guy named Bob Copeland, rest his soul, he's not here anymore. He and I went everywhere together. Everywhere together. My father used to tease me, "That's your little white boyfriend. Daddy, stop that." So we went everywhere together until we went to junior high school. Once we went to junior high school, he wouldn't even speak to me. So that was hurtful at that particular time. And then during the time, all the girls were going down to the Capitol Theater getting jobs as ushers. And there were openings. I'd go there and apply, and they were full. Another white friend would be right behind me, and she was selected. So later I'd go back home and I'd go, what was that all about?
And how did you deal with that?
Well, I had a pretty good sense of self I mean, I was insecure in some areas because I was 5'10" when I was in the 6th grade and about 30 pounds lighter than I am now. They call me Bea the Tree. So I certainly had issues in that regard. But as far as friends in that, I had so many friends. I just kind of shook it off and figured it was their loss, not mine.
Was your father or mother tall?
My father, there's no option. My father was 6'3", my mother was 5'9". He told her all the children had better be tall.
And do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a brother who I'm the tallest in the family. My brother is he's shrunk a little bit. He's about 5'9". I have a sister that's 5'9", one that's 5'8", and the youngest one who's about 5'5", and we used to tease her and tell her she was a milkman's baby.
Now, how did you go from Iowa to California?
Yeah, well, yeah, you'd wonder that, wouldn't you? Well, I followed a boy. You know, I fell in love with the children's father in college, and he lived in California, and I was determined to get out of Iowa any way that I could. And this didn't seem like such a bad idea, but in retrospect, it was like the naked man that jumped on the cactus bush. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
How did he get from California to Iowa?
He was a football player.
Ah.
Yeah, he came to the University of Iowa on a football scholarship and then transferred back to California on a scholarship.
And so you married?
Oh, yeah. I married him.
And you were his girl of his dreams?
Well, probably eventually became the girl of his nightmare, but yeah, the girl of his dream. We had two wonderful children, and then after a bit, it was best that we part ways.
And is he still in the life of your children?
Yes, they do see him from time to time. They don't have a real close relationship with him, but they do see him from time to time.
My father died when I was 8, and a lot of people, I've talked about this before, but it's really important to me personally, just in my heart, that if one of my parents had to leave, I really appreciate it was my father. Because the mother seems to be able to hold it together and take you the directions that you need to be. So how did you do as a mother?
You know, I think I was, you'd have to ask my children, but I was a hands-on mother. I was tough. In retrospect, I think all of us as parents would probably be a lot tougher, and I would do things differently. But I was very, very systematic. They were very, very scheduled. They had chores. When they would clean their room, for instance, clean your room, Saturday, clean your room. And if they didn't clean the room like they should, I would go and do a dump. I'd take everything out of the closet, the drawer. I said, now clean your room. And then they used to tease me and call me Mommy Dearest. And I thought that was cute until I saw the movie. And I thought, I'm not Mommy Dearest. Well, I didn't hit them with wire hangers, put it that way.
I have a cousin, a girl cousin, whose mother harped and harped on her to clean her room. She caught a school bus every morning just down the road 100 yards. She couldn't get my cousin to clean her room, and so one day when they came home on the bus, on the mailbox was the girl's bra and her slip and her slippers out there and a whole bunch of other things. And of course she was mortified, and my aunt just said to her, then clean your room. And she kept her room clean thereafter.
My mother did a similar thing to my older sister. She was dating her husband, bless her heart. He's a wonderful man. And so she was messy. I wasn't. I was, you know, misorganized. I just always have been that way. And so what she did when he came over to visit one time, my mother marched him up to her bedroom. He says, you want to marry my daughter? This is what you're going to marry. She was mortified, and needless to say, she cleaned her room from that point on.
How about, did your children get to go back to Iowa and enjoy Grandpa and Grandma?
You know what's interesting? My mother died very young. She was 44, so the children never met her. They did meet my father and love Granddad. My father was on the planet probably about the most chauvinistic person you can imagine. Women had their place, men had their place, and my daughter was always a little vigilante. And they were back there visiting one time, and so dinner was over, and it was time to do the dishes. So he had the girls go do the dishes, and my son...
Woman's work.
Yes. And my son sat down and watched shoot-em-ups, you know, cowboy movies with him. And my daughter just apparently pitched a hissy fit. She went, I don't understand, Granddaddy, why she... He goes, okay. So he had my son take out one little bag of trash, put it in the dumpster, and come back and watch the movie.
We have some friends whose wife took care of everything to laying out his clothes in the morning, you know, to everything you can think of. And she died about 10 years ago. He didn't know how to work a microwave. He didn't know how to work a washing machine. He didn't know how to do any of those things. And his oldest daughter came to visit, you know, and help with the funeral and everything. And she just said, Dad, I'm going to give you 24 hours of OJT, on-the-job training.
Good.
And then after that, you're on your own. So I talked to him after Alice had been dead 4 or 5 months, and he said, you know what, I'm pretty good at this stuff. I've learned how to iron, you know, and all those other things, so that's cool.
It's funny, I just bought a sign when I was up visiting in Oregon, which is sort of my sense of humor, and it says, if you want breakfast in bed, you should consider sleeping in the kitchen.
I saw a sign hanging in a friend's house that said, I'm in charge in this place, and I have my wife's permission to say that, so it works well. Now, one of the reasons you and I came together was, of course, the death of your husband and your writing and your speaking and all those other things. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I wrote a book, really, my husband died 6 years ago. It's been, you know, time flies whether you're having fun or not. 6 years ago of lung cancer. Well, during the time that he was ill, I didn't know what to do. I'd never taken care of anyone that had been ill other than children with mumps, measles, chickenpox, things of that sort. And so I didn't know what to do, particularly since, as you can tell, I'm a type A personality, and he was pretty laid back. If I got something, I got something. I'll deal with it, you know, it's not a problem. Well, that's not my, my deal. So I really played my strong suit, which was organization. And I wrote this book while he was dying called Farewell, My Friend. And it's a step-by-step guide that really walks the reader through what to do at all times during an illness, even before the illness, how to negotiate with the doctor, how do you set up a sick room? I mean, something as simple as, do you know that, for instance, a hospital bed, what size sheets does a hospital bed take?
I haven't a clue.
A lot of people wouldn't. They'd say twin. No, twin extra long. I mean, something as simple as that. So that kind of practical advice is in the book. Then I deal with how to take care of yourself as a caregiver. I'd never been a caregiver before, and it is a tremendously stressful situation. You're on 24/7, and there's an expression that says the caregiver is the first to go. Well, unless you've been a caregiver, you don't know what that means. And so I had been a caregiver. So out of his death, I wanted to write a workbook that would allow people not to have to stress over areas that I had stressed over, and it's been warmly received. From the book, I ended up giving a presentation to this television station, and we ended up with the television show that was initially called Beyond Bereavement, talking about bereavement, but Beyond Bereavement. And then after a bit, we realized people thought it was just on bereavement, and we changed the name from A to Z with B, and we cover everything, and it's fun.
It is fun. You know, the caregiver thing, we're just back from my in-laws' place for 10 days, where with my tongue in cheek, but sincerely, he's trying to get dead. He's on hospice and all those other things. He's 89, my mother-in-law's 87, and it's beating her just down something fierce because she has to, and no matter how much help the children give and all those other things, he still wants his wife there and he wants to ask this and, you know, the trust factor. And she's terribly worn and weary, you know.
And someone needs to watch her. I mean, absolutely watch. She needs time out, something as simple as a day away, have the kids come in and spend the day, someone take her off, you know, for an overnight. So if nothing else, the poor woman can sleep. She needs to do something as simple as, believe it or not, massage. I really recommend that because you spend all your time giving and doing, and people don't give and do to you. She needs to go to the beauty shop, get her nails done, a pedicure, something where she has an hour where people just focus on her.
Well, one day I said to my wife and her, why don't you guys take off to lunch? And one of my sister-in-laws there. And so they took off about 11 o'clock, and I said, have fun, and you know, they'll be back in a while. And they were gone about 3 or 3.5 hours. They went to a Mexican place, and they just laughed and all those other things. And when she came back into the house, you know, oh, we've just had so much fun, and you know, da-da-da. And then, how is he? You know, and she just came right back to the present immediately there. So
yeah,
what you say is true.
It doesn't go away. This doesn't go away, even when you go away.
Was your husband a smoker?
He was. Yeah, he was a smoker. When he was in the service, he was in the service for 30 years, 4 years as a Marine, hoorah, and 26 years in the Air Force. And he smoked like 3 packs of cigarettes a day. And then when he developed diabetes, He stopped smoking, and he drank and stopped drinking right away. But it turned out that the nature of his illness, he had type 2 diabetes, which is not unusual if you're black. Even though he was kind of black, he was half Native American, a quarter black, and a quarter white. But he stopped drinking. At the same time, he developed diabetes and stopped smoking. However, when he was in Vietnam, he was in charge of the transportation terminal. He moved equipment and personnel, and he also did special ops for the Air Force. So he was an Agent Orange victim. He had all the classic symptoms. He had type 2 diabetes, he had prostate cancer, and then lung cancer. Those are all key markers for Agent Orange. But that was rough. But the other thing is he also, once he retired and then became ill, developed a severe case of post-traumatic stress. He was there all the time because he would have nightmares and he would jump and carry on. And my kids used to tease me and says, "Mom, you're always taking a nap." I said, "You take a nap too if you weren't sleeping during the night," because he would have nightmares.
I rode in a carpool for about 5 years, just the two of us, with a man who had seen a lot of combat in Vietnam. And he would wake up in the middle of the night, and on his dresser would be two fully armed Viet Cong guys. And it'd terrify him, and he'd jump out of bed and look for a weapon, and then he'd find, oh, well, I'm, dreaming, hallucinating here. And I said to him one day, "Why don't you ask them what they want?" "No, I'm too frightened at the time." And his wife would be sleeping, but as soon as he started up, then she'd wake up and what's going on and all these other things. Well, anyway, it took him about 2 or 3 years to finally ask them, "What do you want?"
Wow.
And the one man spoke to him in Vietnamese that he couldn't understand, but his body language and his sense was, we want to make peace. We want to make peace. So he went through these nightmares off and on for 6 or 8 months, where he would actually lay down at bed at night and say, "I wonder if they'll show up, and if they do, I'm going to ask them about such and such," because they seemed to be able to understand each other even though they weren't speaking the same language. When he finally reached that point that they had made peace, which took 6 or 8 months, and actually stood up and felt like they had shaken hands, they never came back.
Right, because he had made peace with the situation.
Exactly.
He had made peace with it.
That was exactly right. And I got to live through that every morning. We'd leave early and rubbing his eyes.
Right.
And I didn't get any sleep because the guys in the jungle are battling.
Because the war's not over. I can remember I like to sleep with the sound machine. The ocean, because one reason I like the ocean, but Rick and I had so many really great vacations around the ocean, so we'd go to sleep. Well, it has different little settings on it, and one is like the night. So you hear the crickets and you hear the frogs and all that. So we had that on one night, and I could tell he wasn't asleep. He said, "Turn it off," like that, and I jumped up and I said, "What?" He said, "That's the way it sounded in the jungle when you lay there waiting for a twig to break."
Right.
So we didn't play that particular aspect of the sounds anymore.
All right, changing gears just
Sure.
a little bit. Did you raise your children religiously?
I did, absolutely. Baptist was our faith. Yes, I took them to church. Didn't take them to Sunday school. In retrospect, that's something I would definitely do differently. But yes, they did go to church.
And are they religious now?
But they are. My son goes to a church on a regular basis, and my daughter is doing more of an alternative religion. She calls herself a Gnostic, not an agnostic. She's one that questions it, but she does believe in Jesus Christ. I'd like to throw a bag over her head at times, but she's finding her way. But she's a wonderful girl.
And you go to church?
I do at St. Paul Baptist Church. I'm very active in the church. Our Pastor Ephraim Williams.
Fine man.
He's a great guy. He's
man.
a great guy. We have an awful lot of fun. He always teases me. He'll call me, or I'll call him, or we'll be talking. He'll say, "Well, B, I haven't gotten that call yet." I said, "What call?" He said, "You know that call?" I said, "What? That I'm going to get married again?" I said, "Pastor, tell you what. We'll have a dual wedding. When you get married again, I'll get married again." So that's like a running joke between both of us.
And he buried his wife.
He did.
Yes.
He did. And I told him, I said, if I don't make it to heaven, I can say for sure that I have had a friendship with an angel here on earth. His wife was just delightful sense of humor, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman.
Do you sing at church?
You know what? Interesting. I don't. I was in the choir for years, and for me to sing, that's being one of the tonettes. It's an easy thing for me to do. Where I believe my gift is one of teaching. I do teach adult Sunday school, people who've been married 17 to 22 years. And when they come to my class, they don't have any idea what's going to happen. I could do pantomime. We can do a debate. I love the men against the women. Charades, Pictionary, acronyms, whatever I come up with. And then, of course, I let the Holy Spirit come in and kind of direct whichever way we go. Is that okay?
Good for you.
Yeah, I do.
Good for you.
So I have my structure, but it's not my agenda.
When you were a little girl, let's say 5 or 6 or 8, what did you see out in the future? I mean, was it just motherhood, or was it college? Or
well, when I was 5 or 6, I only wanted to do one thing, and that was to paint and draw. It's the only thing I wanted to do. And again, with parents trying to prepare their children and to protect their children, I can remember going to my mother saying, I want to be a painter. I mean, all I want to do is draw and paint. And she said, sweetheart, they're not going to hire a black artist. You need to be a teacher or a nurse, which those were the safe professions for black women to enter into. So that's what I wanted to be when I was a little girl.
did you see the movie where the black women were the maids?
Oh, The Help.
The Help.
Yes.
What was your take on that?
You know, it was interesting. Of course, I love Minnie, the little feisty
Yes.
one, the little rascal, and that it was a sad movie to me. It was it was tough. I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, enjoyed it. I'm glad the story came forth, and the women were very, very courageous. And I thought it was a interesting slice on a very key time in our society.
I've said this before, but I grew up in the Southwest in the desert, where the people we dealt with were the Native American Indians. Right. They were Arapaho and Navajo and Paiute and that. But my parents insisted that we were all just children of God.
Right.
Didn't matter, what you looked like, what size you were. But I had no real interfacing or working at all with any black people at all till I got to boot camp. Mm-hmm. And my bunkmate was a kid from Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Louisiana, okay.
And of course, we immediately became fast friends because you had each other's back, mm-hmm. and you had to do that, and it was Vietnam, and blah blah blah. So it took me at least about 24 hours to get over seeing that his skin color was different mm-hmm. than mine, and mm-hmm. By the time we got to 48 hours, that no longer mattered.
Right.
And that was a good experience for me. I think that was better than if my bunkmate would have been another white kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you would stay in a little box.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked through that really, really well. And he would tell me things about Louisiana. And I'm living out in the great Southwest desert area of the United States, and that was like we were living in a different solar system.
You were.
Yeah,
you were.
A whole different place.
Yeah.
So I got that quickly early on in my life, and that worked out really, mm-hmm. really well. Do you still draw and paint? I do. That's something I haven't since the book came out because I'm very busy with the show, and then I'm just busy. I worked for Xerox for 22 years, and it was hard charging, hard pace, busy, crazy. Then I worked for the state, and the department I worked in, I functioned as assistant division chief, and it was hard charging. Blah, 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 blah. Now I do this, and my girlfriend says there's only one common denominator in all these careers. It's you. It's just how I live my life. But before the book came out, yes, I did go down and paint every week with my girlfriend at her studio. And then I took art painting classes and drawing classes, and I put the stuff up, but there's part of me that really wants to slow down and start painting and drawing again. And will that happen?
Only if I do it.
And
I don't know. I mean, I want to. I guess I got to take it out of the rafters first and put up the easel. That would help.
So what's the future for you in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I travel a lot. I really do like to travel. I try to take one big trip every year. Last year I went to Brazil. This year I have a cruise planned to Panama, the Panama Canal, Aruba, Costa Rica, and the Cayman Islands. So I have a map of the world, and I color in where I've been and where I need to go, and there's a lot of places I still need to go.
The trip through the Panama Canal you will love.
I've heard that.
And Costa Rica was a thrill. And I read just the other day that Costa Rica is the happiest country in the world. And it's just this nice, slow, easygoing pace. I had said to somebody that, alligators are in the Western Hemisphere and crocodiles are in the Eastern Hemisphere, And we got to Costa Rica and on a river run, and holy Toledo, they had crocodiles out there bigger than anything I'd ever
Oh,
seen
yeah.
before.
I hear it's beautiful. I'm looking
It's
forward to it.
beautiful. We took a walk through the canopy forest and a bunch of different things. Do you travel alone?
I travel sometime with a companion, but I have girlfriends that love to travel, that are retired and love to travel. So I go to Mexico every year, and in the March 1st of March, end of February, there's a health spa that I go down to, to treat myself for a week,
Good
and
for
that's
you.
it's a lot of fun, very reasonable.
Are you treated any different because of the color of your skin in this era?
Well, if so, it's so subtle. I mean, I'm not aware of it. Of course, I mean, I'm black and I understand that, but I'm not passionately aware of it.
But you know what? From my perspective these days, I'm talking about looking at a woman. She's pretty, or I guess she isn't.
Right.
And the skin color or whatever else doesn't seem to matter anymore. Now, as we wrap up, the magic question is, if you could wave a magic wand and fix something in society, what would that be?
Good question. What I would say is that everyone should follow the greatest commandment, and that's the one that was given by Jesus Christ, that you should love your brother as yourself.
And why aren't we doing that?
You know what? Because we all have our agenda, and our agenda is not his agenda. And life would be so much easier if we just followed that great commandment.
Nicely said.
Thank
Good
you.
way to end. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
It's a joy to visit with you.
Thank you.
Okay.